basically three main areas, so motion sickness, social acceptability, and like constrained spaces, so interaction techniques. So basically, in this work is basically on the confined space, interaction techniques, and social acceptability. It's being recorded by great. So basically, it's that in different types of passenger experiences. So basically, I can just starting now. So augmented reality headsets have the potential to significantly enhance the user experience by overlaying information on top of the real world. This is even more interesting in passenger contexts such as airplanes, which enable people to move beyond restrictive displays, such as laptops and mobile phones, which put people in very uncomfortable positions and limit the way people's experience while in transit. And unlike VR headsets, like you see here, AR headsets enable people to be aware of their surroundings. So AR enable people to recreate the full workspace with only a headset and some peripheral for input, like the paper from McGill et al. Also, like a recent example is the Infinite Workspace by Facebook, or Meta now, which enable people to use AR to recreate their workspaces using a horizontal layout. And virtual displays were claimed to be as effective as physical displays in recent studies about multi-display layouts, which combine both physical and virtual displays. But differently from physical displays, users can easily rearrange them and adapting them to their preferences. This is even more important for passenger contexts, as displays must take into account not only the physical environment people are in, but also the social context they're in. So, and also we need to be considerate of others so we don't be like invade people's personal or social space. So our previous work from last year, we explored the use of multi-display layouts and like AR headsets, where we basically used like a simulated AR and VR, where we have like avatars and in a plane scenario, and we had a bunch of different fixed layouts. However, but the word is still, we found that yes, people prefer the ones that took into account the people around them, so that they didn't need to stare directly at the people, the avatars in there, but still the work is limited to fixed layouts and to airplane environments. So, however, in other passenger contexts, the question still remains. So in this work, we are interested in basically how should we lay out virtual displays to best fit within the transit context for different types of transport, in this case, like cars, planes, trains, and subways. So, and we devise, more specifically, we are interested in knowing in what are the different influences in different forms of transport, in this case, trains, cars, subways, and cars. And also, how does the number of displays influence the virtual display layout? So in this case, we had 1, 3, and 5 display layouts. So, our task was similar to last year, but in this case, we had more of a design task where people would be able to basically play around with the displays and create the display that they want in the different scenarios that we had for each. So with a growing number of displays, so 1, 3, and 5 in the 4 passenger contexts that we analyzed. Again, so we did that for 4 environments that also simulated an ER context in VR. So we had people in 4 different configurations. So in a train where you had like a table and some avatars, a plane, which was similar to last year's work, a subway, and also like a private car where we're basically like an Uber driver. So you would be sitting in the back seat in this case. So For analysis, we basically used quantitative data. So we logged in the position and rotation of each display, and also like classified the layouts based on the orientation of these displays towards the user. We also logged in some user preferences such as satisfaction, task difficulty, visual comfort, influence of avatars, and likelihood of usage. And we also conducted semi-structured interviews for more like granular subjective data. Another thing what's interesting is that after that people did perform the task in a mode of transport, so we handed out a tablet to them, and they could basically like had the grid overlaid into the snapshot of the environment that they were in, and they would basically like draw where they would place displays, and with green, and where would they never would do it, they would put they would draw like with a red color. And so we tested statistical significance with using the statistical analysis on the questionnaire data, and we first performed a Shapiro test to test for data normality, and since the results did not follow a normal distribution, we used an ART followed by a two-way ANOVA with number of displays of 1, 3, and 5, and mode of transport as the two levels. So basically, regarding satisfaction with the layout created, we found that significant results for both the mode of transport and where the car, where people were more satisfied with the layouts they created than the subway. And we also found that people prefer overall the displays that they created with 1 displays in compared to 3 displays and 5 displays. Regarding this task difficulty was a significant effect, and also people prefer 1 displays to 3 it was easier to place displays around with 1 display compared to 3 displays and 5 displays as well. And people also found it way easier to do to perform the task with 3D to place 3 displays and 5 displays in the task that we had. We also found the influence of avatars also showed a significant effect for mode of transport, with a significantly lower effect on cars in comparison to subways, airplanes, and trains. So because there was just one avatar in there, and it was facing the other way. So regarding the likelihood of use, the analysis showed significant results for both mode of transport. So the airplanes, people would prefer to use it on like trains in comparison to subways, cars, and well, the subway actually was the one that they preferred the least. So people liked overall the other ones, but didn't like too much the subway. So they didn't like it compared to the airplanes, cars, and trains. And also like they found that 1 display was more visually comfortable than 3 displays and also 5 displays. This I'll just go through it, but the important thing is here. So basically, we with the log data that we had, we basically can see that most people used they try to place displays, so place virtual contact aligned with surfaces. So in the plane, for example, you can see here that they place really in front of them and trying to maintain some sort of awareness of their surroundings. So if you see it here, like it's a heat map, so you can see here where they would place displays around. So in the case of train, for example, like they place the displays in the table in front of them. Also, we can see that here they also try to position things more or less in the eye level, like we can see here, and less people like place displays above their eye level. And the train, for example, we can see here, this is where the table was, so they really align the virtual content to the physical affordances here. So basically, for mode of transport, we also conducted a post-modal transport questionnaire where we asked them to rank their preferred layouts in the different modes of transport. So for mode of transports, results show that 75% of the participants would be likely to use their plane layouts, followed by the train and the car, and then the subway. This was mainly due to the high amount of avatars in the subway environment. So like, but we also saw, does the title of the paper, that most people, so people had different strategies also while placing virtual displays. So most people avoiding placing displays over people, so where they avoided placing them, so they could have, so one of the things that people said about that is to like maintain some sort of situational awareness, and for like social etiquette, because it was kind of like weird, like staring at them. So, and also would be weird if, for example, they would want to interact with you in any way. However, like in places with a high number of people, so for example, in the subway, people actually prefer shielding themselves from others. So because like some of the users said, so because they didn't have that much space around them, they just had to accept you were going to put a screen on top of people's faces. So they basically were shielding themselves from other people. So this, we again can see it, this type of thing. So in here, for example, we see that in the subway, people were actually, we tended to place on top of people's faces and bodies. So like I said before, like people use their space to place displays for like things like comfort. So because like to align their content to physical for because of comfort. And also like familiarity, for example, because like if you have, in the case of like the train, they would place displays on top of the table because it would remember themselves like using the laptop. So that's some reasons why they place the content around. And regarding the research question 2, even though they found the one display layout to be normally easier to place displays and preferred as the questionnaires, when we actually asked them to rank the type of display layout they preferred, they said that 3 displays followed by 1 display and last 5 displays. And the 5 displays, the reason that they said it was not very good was because it was like difficult to lay out due to the restricted space. Because like the 3 displays was kind of the optimal, because you had some sort of like enable them to have some sort of multitasking, so they would be able to like do something like that. But in the 5 displays was too much, and 1 maybe too little of a quantity of displays. So in conclusion, we can say that layouts actually must adapt to the environment. Different people had different strategies depending on the transport. So in transports with more people, they would use like a shielding strategy, and rather than when there's less people, you would use an avoidance strategy, so not place displays around people's faces. And also like layouts with 3 displays were preferred, followed by 1 display layouts. And for more info, please read the full paper. Thank you. If you have any questions about it.
So I'm just wondering, so I think you used terms content and display kind of interchangeably.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, is display layout content dependent in your opinion?
Well, we actually done different tasks in the beginning, but we actually differentiated in the initial test. We did a test with two different tasks, so entertainment and productivity. And I remember this would lead to us to like a three factor analysis, and we actually performed this analysis, and we didn't find any statistical difference between the two. So we just went with productivity. Is something that I actually didn't talk about, but I can include that in the talk as well.
Just more generally, one way, like, if there's a difference, let's say, in the narrative content, like, news versus if I watching the film, does it matter how many plays I want and where do I want to put them? But I guess that wasn't something.
Yeah, in this case, not that much, because, you know, like, if you see the type of content that we had, it can just like come back. So when you have it here, so it was like basically like reading a paper, spreadsheets and things like that. So it was more like we had, so it was, people were not actually doing something. They were just like having like a screenshot of what would they be doing, and each one of them would be different, and we would stack them in a specific order. So normally they would place the main display as like in the center, and others around.
Maybe recommend using the term display as opposed to
Yeah.
content.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. Yeah. Mhm. Yes. Yeah. Well, we actually had to work about that. So we did a survey, and we basically had different ways. For in our case was like interaction techniques. So yes, there was a difference. And even like in the interview when we talked about that, in like people, they weren't, because some of them were not very familiar with AR headsets and things like that. So at some point they even thought the other people would be seeing what they were seeing. So it was a bit of like a difference and some sort of confusion regarding that theme. But yes, I think it also makes it a bit. In this one, we focused just on the person, but we actually need to investigate further to know like the effects of like bystander and in these type of contexts. Yeah. 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 Well, there's also like, yeah, there's also like more work that we submitted was not yet accepted. Like, you see some authors of that paper here, and and it's all about like giving some sort of feedback to bystanders. So like, what type of feedback do you need? In this work, we didn't focus on that part yet. We focus more like on how people would basically use the physical and social affordances of like different passenger contexts. But I see this being very interesting for work in the future. Yeah.
Really nice and really cool, really necessary. Actually test about the mode of transport and actually the configuration number of people that wear it.
Yeah.
In this mode of transport, right? So it really has to be sort of like the results, you know. Which is sort of see, you know, if people are facing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, it have more or less acceptance and there are more people.
Yes. Yes. It can be.
The train.
This one. The train is
The
this one.
train and the subway after the.
Oh yeah. 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 So basically the thing is we selected and we populated the virtual environments according to this aspects that you were talking about. So for example, in a train, you would have people that could be like either facing the other way or facing you. And in this case, we just placed like a table in front of them. So basically try to emulate how people would work or how people would like use a laptop when you had like a train, and you basically like place people in front of them. So, but they're like closer together. And in the subway, for example, it would be like a bit further away, but like maybe more people around. And the plane was like, was actually the one thing that we did for last year. So you have basically like normally like a seat pad in front of you and also like people in either side. And in the car, we were basically trying to emulate like a Uber driver, or look like an Uber ride or something like that. So yes, we try to emulate different seating configuration based on the different types of transport. Yeah.
In terms of.
Yes. Yeah, so basically like a lot of the results are based on like the proximity of people and also like how close they are and the configuration of how they are, because in here you see like, because you have a lot of people and people are a little bit further away. So like it wasn't, it's a bit difficult to generalize for all these types of things because, well, we have a fixed this display and we were a bit careful to say on these terms. But when we have more people and they're like further away, people kind of try to shield themselves from others. While were closer, in the case of the train, so they would avoid staring at them. So they would not place displays right in front of people's faces. So I hope these answer this. To VR. Well, we can, but first of all, it's very difficult, and it's difficult actually to really say. Well, it's first of all, it's very difficult and not very cost effective, and also it's difficult to emulate the environment the same way. So that's one of the reasons that we use AR and VR. So everybody could So the environment, all the avatars and all the people are in the same location, so we could have a more general idea of where to place this place. And we were not very interested in how the other people interacted with us or with the user in this case. But we wanted at least to have some sort of hint if like the social affordances and the physical affordance were able to impact it really on the display of virtual layouts in this case. And also like there is even some work, some previous work that indicate that, for example, like it's only important to have some sort of feedback from the avatars. So for example, if you stare at them, they stare back at you. If there really some intention to collaborate. But if you have, in this case, something that's just like more of a background, so like more of a afterthought, it's not an afterthought, but it's if there's not really the intention to collaborate, also like the reaction of these avatars of other people are not it does not significantly impact the experience. So like we thought because of that was way easier and more like interesting and effective to use AR and VR than actually go to these different environments. Yes. Well, yes. So okay. Okay. Yeah. Yes, this is something that we can do, but like further work that we are working on is basically like using VR to not do so basically to modify the virtual world around you. So you don't need to actually modify the physical environment. So there's further display that further work that we are developing at the moment to overcome these problems and also like place in the case like to help also people to place virtual elements in more comfortable positions. So because sometimes you want to touch also, you know, like if you wanted to use, for example, displays instead of like a mouse and a keyboard, you could align them to like physical surfaces and basically alter the virtual environment to facilitate a more like comfortable and ergonomic interaction. Well, it's difficult to say actually because um in this case it's a bit more complicated because it's like very public open spaces, and if you see like a lot of different like VR environments in VR research, they're done in very like constrained lab places because like the you know the technology evolved just recently that you know you have just a standalone headset that you could be tracked with like 6 degrees of freedom, so like you know like translation and rotation, so you'll be able to have a more like rich experience. Before you need a very complex setup, so it's still not really, it's not maybe not there yet, but you can one way, for example, could be like using AR, having an intermediate step where you have like we have here, airplane seats, where you can sit there, and instead of there, you can also like place people there and play around, and we make them like perform specific actions, for example. But yeah, that's what I can think about. Any more questions?
Any questions from the online audience?
Thank you.
So yeah, the next seminar will be 3rd of November.